For those of you who were at dinner last night, you heard me talk about Made Movement, which is a very preeminent, prominent digital market, not even just digital, brand marketing company founded by a bunch of rock stars in Boulder, Colorado. And we've been fortunate enough at GSV to begin to work with the Made Movement around rebranding or working on the branding around our learning and talent, GSV Learning and Talent vertical. You guys will see the fruits of that labor sometime before the summit. These guys are also going to be working on our Summit app, so for those of you who were tired of our Summit app, we will be dramatically changing that and hopefully dramatically improving it with the work of Made. And they interestingly combine both technology as well as extraordinary brand sensitivity and aesthetics. It was actually, I'll read it, how it was created. It was created in 2002 with a simple mission to help create more American jobs. They make strategically disruptive, creatively brilliant work that hijacks, subverts, or reinvents product categories, or better yet, creates new ones. And that's what we're hoping they're going to do for GSV. I have the great pleasure of introducing Dave Schiff. He is a true rock star in the world of creative talent in advertising, brand advertising. In fact, he was last year named one of 37 creatives most lusted after by rival agencies. Now, I'm not sure what that means, Dave. I don't know why there were 37, and I don't know what they were lusting after, but, you know, it's pretty alluring. He's fantastic. Dave is leading the charge on our work. He has done work led work for Mini Cooper, Molson, IKEA. He actually launched Coke Zero, one of the most successful new product launches in history, Under Armour, and others. And I'm really thrilled to have him here today. I promise you it'll be a treat.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Thank you for coming. Namaste. Today's presentation is entitled The Business Benefits of Interpersonal Contact. And these things, I think, often go overlooked. And what I'll do, if you'll advance to the next slide, is I'm going to ask everyone at some point to stand up, pair off with a partner, and we're going to do some very gentle, touching exercises, just some things to get familiar with one another. And you guys didn't really fucking think this was my presentation, did you? I mean, give me some credit. But I saw the dread, and it was like, oh, God, is this one of those things where we got to touch? And all right, this is not my presentation. And no offense to any yoga people with the namaste thing. It's a fine pursuit, yoga. So, next slide, please. Also, the real title of my presentation is, It Isn't Even Fair, Using Good to Gain a Business Advantage. And Made is a mission-based advertising agency, and I wish I could say that we went into it fully cognizant or prescient or understanding that we would have all of these advantages. But the truth is, a lot of it, we were just winging it, and we started to discover some of the advantages we had through this mission, this sort of embracing of this good notion. By the way, there's a clicker that they've provided up here. I'm fully fluent in the use of it, but really, what says that I'm a powerful guy at the helm of a formidable organization more than having a guy back there? And Derek works at the agency. He's under me at the org chart. And I will be asking him to advance each and every slide at my whim. I don't have to even push a button. So, next slide. As you heard, I grew up in advertising. I started at a firm called Crispin Porter & Bogusky when there were only 100 people there, and then I was there through a pretty crazy trajectory, a hockey stick for that place where we eventually became 1,400 people with offices all over the world, and I had the opportunity to work on small brands in the beginning and then some of the biggest, most iconic brands in the world. And one of those was Coca-Cola Zero. When Coca-Cola Zero launched in 2004, it was predicted to be a monumental failure. If you guys remember C2 and you remember New Coke, those were just horrific products for the Coca-Cola company. At that time, they didn't own the bottling system, so they were at their mercy. And of course, there are the retailers, and nobody was interested in the quote-unquote next big thing from the Coca-Cola company. So the beverage industry press predicted that we'd be out of business in about 6 months. And so that was very uplifting coming into the project. But we had a pretty simple strategy, and that was Coke Zero tastes very, very, very similar to Coca-Cola, which is the #1 consumer packaged goods of all time. So that's not a weak claim. And we thought, well, what would make you really believe that? Would it be one of those happy animated Coca-Cola commercials where everybody gets along and isn't it great that we're the same? We asked ourselves instead, what would really happen if Coke Zero tasted exactly like Coke, only it had no calories? Well, it would probably cannibalize sales of the mother brand. It would piss off everybody that worked specifically on the Coke brand. And so we hired 2 improvisational actors, brilliant guys from the feeder groups for Saturday Night Live, Central City and the Groundlings. We got them badges, phone extensions, and because there are 4,000 people in Atlanta that work at Coke headquarters, no one knows who anyone else is. So everyone thought these guys were real. And then we set up a conference room inside Coke, and we invited in, they have 100 in-house attorneys at Coke. We invited them in, and then we had these actors posing as Coca-Cola executives propose some avant-garde litigation. We ended up cutting this into 14 different commercials. One of them was a Super Bowl commercial, and it was a very highly successful campaign, but I'll let you enjoy some of the produce of that campaign.
We represent the Coke brand. We would like to sue Coca-Cola Zero.
Would you say that we have a case? For what?
For taste infringement.
We want to just sue them back to the Stone Age to send a message that they're tampering with really the flagship of the company.
It's one company. It's like you suing yourself.
Yeah.
But they're on a different part of our floor.
So we have 2 more of these, and then I'll share some anecdotal information that probably violates some NDA of some sort. But this is another one we did.
We represent the Coke brand, and we would love to somehow bring some kind of legal action against Coke Zero.
There might be some taste infringement issues.
Oh, so you're worried about...
I think it's basic taste infringement. I'd like to stick with that phrase, because that
Okay, but
sounds
I don't-
really good to me.
it's not a claim.
It's not a claim. Could we sue them just to get it into court to just humiliate these
dismissed.
people?
You'll be humiliated, and you'll
We'll
get
be
fired.
humiliated and
you'll
fired.
get fired.
I don't want that.
And then finally there is this last one.
Would you agree that these 2 products taste similar?
Yes.
Do you think that we, as the Coke brand, would have a case against the Coke Zero brand? Because they've infringed upon our taste?
It's a novel theory. What would your proposed endgame be? What would your...
That they were crushed
resolution
and
be?
Ron, their director, was in the fetal position crying under the copier. Crying.
So those were fun to make, but more importantly, they were effective because people weren't used to the Coca-Cola company admitting that it was human. It had all of the same things that big companies have. There was infighting, there were politics. It made them vulnerable, and consumers really responded to that. They also thought, hey, it must really taste like it if there's a problem. So we had double-digit growth for every quarter for 7 straight years, and it was the most successful new product launch for them in 25 years since Diet Coke. But I'll tell you some things. Actually, one thing that was great was that woman, Elizabeth. She was so great. She said, let me tell you something. I don't give a shit what's in this can if it sells for this company and makes money. And we're like, destroy the film. We have to destroy the film. But this is where I really started to have an existential crisis, because some of the attorneys, which we clearly did not make into commercials, one guy said, well, we could draft a threatening letter in a matter of hours. And we're all sort of looking at each other like, is this guy? And then another guy, they start getting creative. One guy was like, listen, if you can prove that they launched this product maliciously, you can sue them as individuals outside the company. And I kind of was in there with my headset on, and I'm thinking, what am I doing with my life? Like what kind of people am I helping? And they're great people at Coke and they make great stuff, but it just was a time when I had some reservations about my path in life. And then then, oddly, the next thing I got to work on was a little passion project we did. There's there was a tiny motorcycle manufacturer called Bramo, and they were in Ashland, Oregon. And they made the world's first highway legal electric motorcycle. And this is back when, I want to say this is like maybe 2010, and it's back when everybody, the Teslas and all the other, they're all getting government funding. And these guys are sort of being passed over. So what they wanted to do is they came to us and they said, how can we get awareness? We just need to get awareness. We have no money, so it's a dream project. And how can you help us out and just get us on the radar? The ultimate goal is we want funding. We just want to get funding, and so we want to be conspicuous. So I don't know if you guys remember, but the big 3 CEOs flew to Detroit to ask for bailout money, and they all took like Gulfstreams and Learjets. And as soon as they landed, the president was like, how'd you guys get here? You know? And they told him, and he's like, maybe you should, step back and rethink the way you're using your resources. And so America got really upset about that. So we said, let's retrace that voyage. And we started at the exact same private plane terminal in Detroit where they left from. And we rode these things, and you plug them into wall sockets. So you got to kind of surf wall socket to wall socket. And they'll only go about 40 miles. And so, I mean, we were like transients. There were people that just shut their doors and locked them because we were asking to plug in. But I'll show you this film. It's a little long, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. The reason I'm showing it to you is it was the polar opposite of the previous piece of work that I showed you. It stopped feeling like advertising to me, and I think you'll sense that when you watch the video. And it started being a thing where I felt like I was part of something bigger, and I just wanted this company to win. And I became completely lost in the campaign itself. So we'll play this and let you see what we were talking about.
I'm talking to Brian Wisman and David Schiff. They're right now traveling on a Bramo electric motorcycle from Detroit to Washington, D.C. Their mission is to shock Barack Obama. Now, I don't know what exactly that means, so why don't you tell people?
Well, we wanted to retrace the journey taken by the big 3 automotive CEOs in 2008 when they flew from Detroit, Michigan to Washington, D.C. to ask the government for billions of dollars in bailout funds. Only we are going to get there on electric motorcycles at a cost of about $4 per guy. And when we arrive, instead of asking for a handout, we just want to give something to the president.
Bramo is a small company with a big idea, the Inertia, the world's first highway legal 100% electric production motorcycle, made right here in America. Our trip would be an organic, real-time, interactive experiment at 70 miles per hour through the blue highways of small-town America, designed to accomplish 3 goals. Make Bramo famous without any advertising or media budget. Position Bramo as a leader in the fight for additional governmental funding of electric vehicles, and empower everyday Americans to effect political change through the Bramo brand. The hub of the project was ShockingBarack.com. It became home to an on-the-go form of crowdsourcing. It served as a makeshift social community, and it was a recruitment tool for outlets, couches, and political contacts. As the ride unfolded, it became evident that it was more than a road trip. It was a new form of live advertising, one that enabled content to be created, produced, edited, and published in real time, so the world could not only watch, it could participate. People began to feel less like they were following the trip, and more like they were along for the ride. And as the miles went by, the project was fueled as much by altruism as by electricity.
I got power for you there.
Hey,
welcome to Harry's.
We noticed that you have a pretty amazing rig here. Would it be
you guys need electricity.
We do. Could we do it?
Sure.
Before long, the process was feeding itself, as a passive audience transformed into an active community, one that influenced, encouraged, and guided our actions. Strangers from other states and even other countries helped us locate outlets, food,
this is the best meal we've had this whole trip,
and shelter along the way. People we never met were calling politicians on our behalf, and the trip was becoming content. Social media delivered this story to traditional media in towns along the route, and soon the national media was listening.
people have lost faith in America's ability to innovate and America's ability to be scrappy and do a lot with little. And we believe that we're riding two-wheeled evidence to the contrary. If you can go ask him for billions of dollars, wouldn't it be weird if you couldn't just go give him something?
By the time we reached D.C., the bikes had become a rolling petition from the people to the president.
Well, we've reached Washington, but the real journey, the hard part, starts now.
Thank you for contacting the office of Senator John Kerry.
Every call we made, every door we knocked on, every hand we shook brought us one step closer to realizing the goal.
We're at the White House. Kind of has a little bit of a gated community vibe.
You guys need this guy's number? He's with their Office of Climate and Change. To give him a call right now.
Calls were returned, doors began to open, and policymakers began to listen.
Distinguished senators and congressmen, you guys have juice, and it's the kind of juice that we can't get from an electrical outlet.
I'm hoping that somewhere, someone is trying this hard to give me something.
And then it happened. The public support, media buzz, and mounting social pressure caught the attention of the man who oversees the nation's energy policy.
Craig just came out of the meeting with Secretary Chu.
Obama asked for 1 million vehicles by 2015. And, we're kind of signing up for 150,000 of those.
Hopefully this will further pave the way for one of these bikes to actually get to Obama, although the bigger mission is definitely being accomplished. So we've come a long way, both in terms of mileage and in terms of getting a bike to Barack Obama. But if we're honest, we haven't done what we came here to do, and that's give the president an electric motorcycle. Brian is chaining this bike to a pole somewhere in downtown Washington. And we're going to take the key to that lock, and we're also going to take the ignition key. We're dropping these in an envelope. These are going to Barack Obama.
It's not the fairy tale ending that we had hoped for, but it's a real ending, and I think that's maybe even better.
That was in D.C., and we were pretty sure that that bike would just be taken apart by ne'er-do-wells within a night, and there would be nothing left. But actually, we got a call the next day from the Department of Energy, and Stephen Chu wanted to, they have like a little museum at the bottom of the DOE, if you've ever been there. And so they asked if they could display the bikes down there. And then ultimately what happened was Bramo received a huge tranche of funding, and then a second one, and now they're owned by Polaris, and it worked, but the bigger thing for me was, man, I enjoyed that. It stopped feeling like a job, and I could also tell that the passion of it was what was giving it potency. And I thought, man, it would be cool to do that every time out. I wish every time we did something, it could feel like that, because I had felt like I'd spent the majority of my career making horrible people wealthy. And so, which is kind of cool too, but I would rather have it be good people. So, or at least be germane to a mission. So, next slide is, I started being introspective after that, and I started thinking about my job. I remember sitting in my pickup listening to NPR and thinking, they were talking about, to me, the economy. I never understood how it worked. It was like, like a front move through and my house is worth less. I just wasn't smart enough to really get the way it worked. But more and more I heard it being attributed to manufacturing, and I felt like part of the problem. Here I am, I'm in a service industry, and we're not making anything anymore, and it's a global economy, but we need some balance and we need to make some stuff. And so, I'm a pretty kind of sappy, romantic guy, so I started thinking, like, maybe I'll go to work in a factory just on the line. And I'm sure that would have lasted like 10 minutes, because that's actual work. But let's just kind of show you how desperate I was. And then it occurred to us, if you go to the next slide, Derek. Well, this is really how I felt. I think this is extremely accurately, it's even arguably anatomically correct. But this is how I felt the economy operated, and I think this has got to be stopped. Just to be clear, I'm not a proponent of this. I'm the enemy of this. So we thought, what can we do to remedy this clearly unpleasant situation. And that's when the idea came to us, next slide, I realized I don't have to be the person, we don't have to be the person that make things. What if we were just the people that help the people that make things? Because the truth is, most people that manufacture things are awful self-promoters. And then something clicked, and it's like, what if we did the first ever advertising agency that will only work on things that are made in the US? Now, it's a global economy, and we're not the enemy of that. We're not protectionist. There are going to be source materials from other countries. Hey, if Toyota wanted us to work on something and the manufacturing was here, we would work on that. But the idea was, how can we just make a little bit of a difference? And so myself and three of my partners on the next slide, Derek is really, there should be that intuitive next slide, and I feel like it's really like pulling teeth. So anyway, these are the four, sort of founding partners. And 2002 was the date, but we've actually only been around since 2012. So it's been about 4.5 years. And we started in a coffee shop, and the first client called and said, hey, we'll come down and meet at your office. And we were like, let's just do coffee, it'll be more chill. But the reason I show you this, other than the sort of oddly sensual face that Graham is making us there in the middle, is we had a pretty good amalgam of talented people. We all left really good jobs. We all had good job security. So I was running about $250 million of business at the agency, and Graham was heading up global strategy for Microsoft, so that was his specialty. John was he was the head of design among all 3 North American offices of Crispin Porter, really helped kind of reinvent the Domino's brand. And then Scott on the far right was named one of the top 10 technologists in all of advertising. He invented Nike Plus and Nike ID, and then he went on to make everything cool we ever made at CPB. So we had a pretty potent little group of guys that had worked on some of the biggest, sexiest, most successful brands in the country. So our first assignment coming out of that, if you go to the next slide, was an extremely famous brand called Sensicles. You've not heard of it. Surprising. Sensicles is a scented tree ornament that makes a fake Christmas tree smell like a real Christmas tree. And after working on all these global brands, we thought, okay, what do we do with this thing? And the first thing we told them was we said, you might have a nomenclature problem because it sounds like testicles. And long, uncomfortable silence, no name change. But we thought, let's help these guys. And like for me as a creative director, when you have a product like this, you got to give like one of those Rudy speeches, like, listen, guys. No one cared about this project, but we're going to be different. It's got to be some melodramatic thing like that. Well, all I had to say was, guess what? There's 50 people in upstate New York and another 200 in Atlanta, Georgia that all have jobs because of this thing. And everyone got goosebumps, and we worked as hard as we would have worked if we were working on Porsche or Nike or any other brand like that. And we ended up doing some pretty successful work for them. We quadrupled sales for them at Walmart and basically, helped blow up their company. I think we have a piece of creative to share. And this was the first thing that we made for them. And it's based on the fact that these things really do smell like a real tree.
Smells exactly like a real tree.
The only ornament with the real smelling smell of a real tree.
God.
So, thank you. A lot of very mean-spirited people out there. I like that. No, it was, and we had to make the kid say awesome, so he wasn't sad. But we ended up making that lumberjack into a piece of intellectual property. Eventually, we had like a shirtless lumberjack in the People magazine, World's Sexiest Man spread in the magazine. And it was, again, a successful campaign for them. And one of the lessons that I learned that I don't think we counted on was people will really, really be passionate when they feel like they're contributing to a mission. And no, we don't think we're saving America, and we're not Gandhi, and we're a business, but just that little bit, that little kernel of something more. I'm not just trying to move the needle on a business. I'm trying to maybe create some American jobs. It really fired people up, more than I thought. And so that was a big revelation for us, and it became the first of a few very powerful advantages that we've been leveraging as we've gone on these last 4.5 years. A long silence would indicate a slide change. So speaking of people, sure, you can have passionate people, but once they're in your building working on those things, but what about recruiting people? And in our business, we're guns for hire. I mean, that's just the truth of it. We're supposed to be philosophically agnostic, and we never get to stand for anything. Even if you just work at a company that makes something, at least you're part of that tribe. For us, we're going to work on that, and then we're going to go on to the next thing and go on to the next thing. And so we realized that, we could recruit people by offering them an opportunity to stand for something different. So if you go to the next slide, I think if anybody has spent any amount of time around ad people, they can be extremely cynical. And I always wondered, why is everyone so bitter and cynical in this line of work? And it's not, they're not. What I've gradually come to realize is they're just crestfallen idealists. They're actually good-hearted people that want to offer their services to a greater cause, even in a small capacity. So, what that's allowed us to do is shamelessly steal people from the best agencies in the world. So Wieden & Kennedy, Crispin Porter, Martin Agency, Fallon, Carmichael. I remember in the early days, people would be on the phone saying, yeah, I think I'm interested. And we're offering them half what they make with zero job security at basically an experiment. And I'm holding the phone going I can't fucking believe this guy's going to come here. but they would. And so that became a very, very powerful thing for us. It's not only that you're going to get passion from the people that you have, but you're also going to attract the best talent if you have some element of good. And by the way, I don't think it needs to be a very conspicuous message or something you lead with or something that's baked in. We work with so many companies where you can find that little kernel, and it just does all of these same things. So you don't have to exist solely for this advantage. This is something that can be bolted on to almost any business. This is a sub-advantage. I'm not counting this as a full advantage, but we had a graphic designer, and his mom was a school teacher, and she quilted this flag. And if you could get a close look at it, each piece of fabric is different. And I always tell people when we hire them, this might be the only advertising job you ever have that your parents will actually be proud of you. And so, that leads us to advantage 2A. Sub-advantage 2A, your parents will actually be proud of you. So we leverage that as much as we can. So things started going pretty well. We started picking up a little steam, we started winning some business, and we thought, you know what, guys, we got this. We're on to something. And then, almost in a row, Adidas called with a killer project. Oh, can't work on it, not made in the US. They called back again with a different thing because they thought we were out of our mind. Nope, can't do that. BMW motorcycles, I'd cut an arm off to work on that. Nope, not made here, can't do that. Patron tequila. So what we realized we were onto was perhaps the dumbest business model ever launched. And we didn't do any research going into this, are there enough companies to keep us in business? It was just, so we started second guessing ourselves, maybe we should adjust. But what we did find, because we did that, that's what gave it substance. It wasn't just a bunch of BS where we were saying this and then we were doing other things. And so that led to, we sat down with Harley Davidson, and you can look them in the eye in that conference room and say, not only would we rather work on your brand than your competitor, we turned your biggest competitor down. And that's not going to get you the job. You still got to be good at advertising, but it's definitely going to get your foot in the door. And so we ended up doing, we were engaged to do the 5-year strategy globally for Harley. We're too small to execute it. They use a global network of agencies, but really it's top down. They're going to take our thinking and that will proliferate globally. This is a little bit of what it was, and we've redacted it because we've signed an NDA, and as a small shop, we don't have a big legal war chest, and I don't want to be sued out of existence. But it's cool, trust me. New Balance was another one. When we sat down with them, we said, you're literally the only shoe we can work on. We would say no to every other shoe. Not all of them are made here, but enough of them are made here for us to work on it. And as part of their shoe ecosystem, they're launching a digital sport platform. So we helped them do that at CES, where they launched their new digital program. And we had a couple of, I'll read this for you. Darwin never, one of the insight for this was, have you noticed that everything is like, let's all get along and be friends? And it's almost politically incorrect to talk about competing, or beating other people, which is ludicrous. It's the whole idea behind sports. So we said, competition is how we got here. It's in our DNA. Really, it's the entire reason the world is run by humans instead of goldfish or teddy bear hamsters. But lately, something crazy has happened. The basic principle of competition, people beating other people to move all people forward, has become socially unacceptable. Look, we're not saying it's only winners that count. We're just saying it's okay to want to finish ahead of someone else, if for no other reason than to outrun whatever's behind you both. And then I have two more little bits to share. It wasn't called the space jaunt, or the space trot, or the spirited lap around Earth's outer atmosphere. It was called the space race, a race to space. Us and the Russians freaking each other out with ever better performances, together driving mankind where no man or woman had ever gone before. Technically, they got there first, but it lit a fire under America to never stop innovating. It's why at New Balance, we're always in beta. Witness the New Balance Versus, the most advanced training and racing watch on the planet. No matter where you're racing to, a little something to speed you on your way. And then in conclusion, because we didn't want to make this exclusionary, we want everyone to be a part of this, we said, everyone wins when not everyone wins. Our future isn't going to go any better if we all hold hands and walk forward as one. It's going to go better if we try to beat the pants off each other, because there's no limit to where we end up when we're competing to get there. The finish line of a local marathon, the start of a solution to global warming, the surface of Mars. And make no mistake, competing doesn't mean hating each other or trying to set each other backwards. It means realizing we're headed the same direction, and seeing who gets there first will help us all get there faster. So it was really fun to do that, for them, and I think you can feel the passion in that work. So yeah, that was some stuff that we did for New Balance. And those are also, you could see they're manufactured products. They're obviously something that Made could work on, a shoe, a motorcycle. And I always wondered, are we going to end up with like John Deere, and how elastic is this mission? We need to stay in business. And what we found over time is there is elasticity to it. This isn't necessarily an advantage of the mission. It's just to show that a mission doesn't have to preclude you from going after lots of things. So we did some food, and we looked into it. Food is the #2 job producer behind actual manufacturing. 1 in 12 jobs is tied to food. It has a high multiplier effect. I think it's $1.20 for every dollar that you buy on something that's sourced from U.S. agriculture goes back into the economy. So we said, okay, we'll do that. And we did, I'm just going to show you one thing. Church's Chicken came to us, and they had been celebrating just a lot for a little. They would just say, hey, you can get a whole ton of chicken for like $10, but they weren't really telling you like a lot of what. So we just got back to, listen, make the chicken desirable. Make it almost like so good that it's currency or contraband in a mafia family. Here we go.
It's light.
It's 10 pieces for $10. Surely there's enough for everyone.
You done good, Tony.
With 10 mixed pieces, legs and thighs, or tender strips for only $10, everybody can always get what they want.
Church's Chicken, have the love.
Couple of things that I loved about that commercial. There's always a bite and smile. If you watch a McDonald's spot or any other food commercial, people take a bite, a judicious bite, and then they smile and everything's great. You never see a guy like inhale a piece of chicken and then throw the bone in the glove box. And then the other thing is, you know, you look at a McDonald's commercial, everyone looks like a CrossFit guy, you know, like, and it's like, I don't know what McDonald's you're going to, but, you know, like and so, you know, we said, hey, look, let's make real people, you know, if somebody's got a few extra pounds on them, like, look around, that's just how it is. So they were great partners in that, and we ended up turning that family into a recurring sort of character of sorts where they kept coming back. So, but food, you know, was something that was you know, within our mission. The second thing we wondered about were services, and we were approached by services and we said no, but then we were approached by Repair.com, which is like a referral service for, you know, everybody buys appliances now at like Home Depot and those big box stores. It used to be that mom and pop shops sold those. Now the only thing the mom and pop shops do is repair appliances, and Repair.com is sort of like the FTD Flowers. They give them all the referrals. So we said, you know what, let's try to save those jobs. It was one of the fastest shrinking job categories in the country, and so we made a couple of quick things I'll show you for Repair.com. One thing we knew is that we could not control the uniforms because it's just a referral service. And this happens more often than you would think. So we said, how do we turn this into a positive? I'll tell you how. Conspicuous butt crack, a surefire sign that stuff's getting done. You'll never see a hedge fund manager's butt crack. This is not because hedge fund managers are snappy dressers. It's because unlike the guy crawling around your kitchen floor replacing the impeller pump of your dishwasher, hedge fund managers never actually do anything. Apologies to hedge fund managers. Doing stuff often means getting down on the ground and going elbow deep in hoses, valves, wires, and componentry. Activities that can exceed the waist clinging capacity of even the stoutest pants. If the repair guy makes no effort to pull them up, it just means he cares more about your repair than he does about the very rules that govern society. That, my friend, is dedication. And then we have a chart here, just so you know, like if there's just like a ½ inch, that's making headway, 2 inches all over it, 3+, making it happen. So that was something that we ran. And then we also had an insight, and this was autobiographical. We realized in this day and age, you know, you got jobs like chief storyteller and information architect. Like none of us know how to fix I mean, there may be some guys out there, I sure as hell don't know how to fix anything. And so we realized, and we knew from the data, that 9 times out of 10, even when both people were breadwinners, even when the woman of the house had a better job than the guy, she was the one that was like, I'm going to pick up the phone and get this thing fixed because he's not going to do it. So we created a spot that sort of leveraged that insight that we got from research.
Being the man is as easy as calling the man. Call 800-REPAIR now. Repair.com. Let's fix this.
So, and that was a big success for them, and they really saw that they had a business there. So services were even something that we could work on. And then obviously digital platforms. And so we were approached, I mentioned that we had Scott, he's a great weapon in terms of creating digital things. A lot of agencies can think of stuff, but they can't execute, and we really do it all. And we try not, it's not banners and stuff, what it's really about is business solutions that are digital, that are so different or smart that they actually become branding. And so one of the things that we worked on was Copper Mountain is local. We said, okay, those tectonic plates made the mountain in America, so that's American made. But also, in general, a lot of digital things can get offshored, so we agreed that we would work on digital products. It wasn't, as long as it wasn't something that was, you know, a website for a Chinese product. So we ended up calling it Sherpa. Well, first of all, what I'll tell you is they came to us and they had no idea what they wanted. They knew Scott had built Vail's app, and they said, what can you do to undercut Vail's app? Because Copper Mountain is sort of the underfunded, stepchild of that area. And we said, hey, Copper Mountain's all about the ski experience. It's not about projecting, oh, look at me, look at the badges I unlocked, look at the vertical feet I skied. It's more about like just making a soulful, good time. So what we did was we invented this, and by we I mean Scott, invented this, this bundle of functionality where you launch the app, you put it in your pocket, but you've got headphones on. And most of the ski helmets and snowboard helmets come with headphones. And the administrators can drop invisible markers all over the mountain. And when you ski through one, it can deliver any information they want. So there would be navigational stuff like, hey, go left to get to this run, or go right to go into these trees, or hey, you just unlocked a free set of skis or a season pass, or you're looking at this range, and so all manner of information. And so we then added something where you could follow other people. So if you went and skied somewhere and I followed you, I could find all your little breadcrumbs of information as I skied. So it really became like this geo-aware social network layered over a mountain. And the last thing we did was route recommendations, just like other listeners bought. When you go to iTunes, it's like, hey, you've skied this run, and this run. We think you'll like this one. So the data ended up being the thing that was the most valuable, but we have just a real short promotional video we did for it to kind of give you an idea of how it works.
Welcome to Copper Mountain, home of Sherpa, the world's first geo-aware on-mountain guide.
Stay right 4 bumps. Head left for a steeper fall line.
Follow experts to find their secret stashes.
Tree line left holds powder for days.
Leave your own bits of wisdom for friends.
Go straight and meet me at Center Village.
And even win cool prizes.
Congratulations, you just won a new snowboard.
Experience the future of skiing with Sherpa, exclusively at Copper. Download from the App Store or Google Play today.
So Powder owns Copper, and they've got, I think, 9 or 10 other ski areas that they're in the process of rolling this app out to. But it's just neat. It's neat how a strategy can inform everything from an advertisement to an actual platform, digital platform. So I'm getting to the end here, I promise. Lyft, you may be aware of, the big Uber competitor. And these guys are very digitally savvy, so they don't necessarily need our help creating digital stuff, although we have done some things for them and we're currently building a microsite. But what they really needed, a lot of people don't realize, they actually pioneered the space. They beat Uber to this, inventing this category. They just did a terrible job of promoting themselves. Basically what they said is, man, you can change the world. Let's get more people in fewer cars and make a better world. And it's like, you know what? I want to go 7 blocks that way. And I don't want to make a better world right now. I'll get to that later. So Uber came in and they were smart. They were like, look, we're a better cab. We're a better black car. We'll get you that 7 blocks. And they got a lot of momentum, and Lyft found itself way behind. So it's not that we abandoned the mission of Lyft. There's something very cool about the fact that that's why these guys get out of bed in the morning. But we tried to also communicate and lead with the fact that this is a convenient service that can get you where you want to go. So the first thing we did was we took the New York subway map. We took subway maps actually in 6 cities all around the country. And then, I don't know if you can see, but there's the regular subway, and then there's just a million new routes coming off in magenta. And we had lines like a gajillion new stops or ride between the lines. And so we're starting to hint at this is a system to get around, but one where you can get this kind of service on an a la carte basis. The next thing we did, and we fought with MTA about this because it was confusing for passengers, but that's also what made it cool, was we just put this over, and we had ones that said wherever, or home, or any which way. And the point is, hey, you can take the BDF REM if you're going to 34th Street, or if you just want to go home, you could just hop in a Lyft. Originally it said LYFT in pink, and it looked really cool, and they're like, we don't want tourists trying to get on the L train, and that's not happening. And so I had no problem with that. So the next thing we did was we realized, listen, transit is a great way to talk about your product, but where can we start to indict driving? Because there is no doubt that there's a love affair with driving in America, right? Movies, music, it's romanticized everywhere. You can't just go at driving and say, hey, you know how driving sucks? Most people won't agree with you. But if we found the ultimate pain point, we bought, the reason you never see long copy, out-of-home advertising on the highway is because you're supposed to be going 60 miles an hour. And so we found the most congested highways all across America, and we bought media on them so that you would be able to read this entire thing, which people could do. There was news crews going out interviewing people while they were reading the signs. So this one is aimed at commuters because that was a strategic, important thing for them. So this says, this is taking a toll. So imagine you're just stuck in gridlock reading this. That's kind of our ultimate point of sale. They say a lot is lost in rush hour traffic. Productivity, time, economic stuff. But what about the part where you lose your mind? Who's measuring that? Listen, it's not like we have a giant traffic dry erase board that can make half the cars disappear, but we do have a perpetual rolling meeting invite, an app to be more precise. And when you download it, you get a lot of stuff back. Productivity, camaraderie, and yes, perhaps even your mind. And then, riding is the new driving was the line we used. And we did a bunch of these, and they really did a good job of starting to make people think, hey, maybe driving isn't that great. Even if you're in traffic, if you're not driving, you could at least be on your phone or reading or doing email. So that led us to our first, really the first commercial ever in this category in terms of a big, broad piece of communication. This ran on Game 7 of the NBA Finals, which was watched by everybody. It ran throughout the playoffs, and they really put a lot of media behind this. But we tried to, you don't want to be acrimonious when you attack something because people just don't like that. So we tried to be very entertaining and look at all the things that make driving unpleasant. Parking tickets, parking violations, speeding, DUIs, traffic, distracted driving, all of the above, and we ran this spot.
Ding, ding, ding.
Lauren? Hey.
Ding, ding, ding.
So thank you. So that was, there's been, if you look at the perception of Uber, which is very formidable competition, very smart folks, great service, the perception of the Lyft brand as this space becomes commoditized is going up. And that's going to be important, especially when they go to driverless and things like that. It will be important, so we're trying to help them build that brand. So coming to the end here, I wanted to say this was a real surprise to me. Oftentimes when we were in a pitch, we would find the clients selling us. They would, well, this is why you can work on us. No, and then this thing is actually made in Cleveland. And we would look at each other like, is this happening? They're trying to sell themselves to us. What we found was the Lyfts of the world that clearly had a mission where it was about making the world a better place, they were drawn to us. We interfaced better, even though we had different missions. Obviously the Harleys of the world, but then also even like a churches. Before we started working with churches, they just looked at themselves as cheap chicken. And by the time we were done, they were like, oh, cool, we're making agricultural jobs. So they like how they feel when they're with you, and that's a powerful thing. That's another thing that's almost not fair. So the last thing is, you ask, Dave, could this have global implications? And I'm glad you asked that. Yes, it can. Ultimately, the idea of made is not everything on Earth should be made in the United States and exported to the rest of the planet. That's just dumb. What it is it's just really cool when things are made close to where they're consumed. It enriches those areas with jobs. It cuts down on shipping, so that saves money. It also doesn't dump as much crap into the environment. And so all of those things really mean, and I've had the luxury of speaking all over the world, whether it's Turkey or New Zealand or Berlin, and they always say, why don't we have a made here? And I'm thinking to myself, like, you totally should have a made here. Just let us start it. You don't start it. And so it feels like, the next advantage I think we have, the last one is, this is just an example I gave. We have these hats that we sell. They're made in America. Baseball's obviously very American. And I don't think many people buy hats from, like, no one's going to go buy a Wieden & Kennedy hat. Great agency, but who cares? We sell the crap out of these because people care about this. We wondered, we'd been in talks to open a UK office, and we had a friend in the UK, and we had this argument, what would the hat be in the UK? Maybe it wouldn't even be a baseball hat. Would it look different? And this is how much passion that this can induce in someone. He sent us back. He made an e-commerce page for us, and he sent us back this, and I won't read the whole thing, but basically what it says, it's got a little MAID logo on the bottom, and it's a British driving cap, and it says in 1571, Parliament passed a rule that every kid or every male between the ages of like 12 and 50 had to wear a wool cap on Wednesdays. And the reason was wool was such an important and pivotal part of their economy, wool production. So it's just like, God, we never would have thought of this, and it got us really excited about, this becoming a global platform. And that's the fourth and final advantage. A mission gives you potentially a reason to grow beyond growth. Agencies go, hey, we need a footprint in Asia to work on stuff over there. That's not the coolest reason to expand, it's just strictly driven by profit, which is fine, but we'd like to have another reason, which is, hey, we can spread this ethos and we can get agencies all over the world where the people that work there are from there and the brands they work on are made there. So that's it. And when you have all those advantages, I think you're in good stead, You guys are competitive. Don't pretend you're not. Don't pretend you don't like this. No, what I'm trying to say in hyperbolic terms is you have an advantage over others in your category. So, okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And